Hello, it's getting to be the end of February and it's the second episode that I've ever created on YouTube, and I'm calling it my sewing practice. My name is Kathleen, and I just came here on a Friday, hopefully, to go over my latest make. Hello again. Today I'm going to be talking about the September coat. It is a coat that is made by Merchant & Mills. It is described as an English country walking coat. So see how this American suburban driver adapted the coat and made the coat for my lifestyle. Okay, the Merchant & Mills pattern. Let's start with the pattern itself. Please tell me why I decided to print this out and cut it myself instead of sending it to the copy shop, because I certainly do not know. It was a huge pattern. I have a 2-foot cutting table, 2 yards, and guess what? It wouldn't even fit on that. And I didn't even cut out the lining. I did an unlined version. As far as printing it though, I was a little concerned because in America we have different size letter paper than they do in England, where Merchant & Mills, of course, is from. I reached out to them via email and they let me know how I could print it myself. Their instructions weren't extremely helpful because they were printing on a Canon printer and I have an HP. However, I did figure out the key thing is to make sure that you are printing that square at 100% and double check that. And then also there was a little box on my HP printer that said same as from the source. And after I made sure both of those settings were in place, I had no trouble whatsoever printing the pattern, other than the fact that it was several pages. After I cut out the pattern, I proceeded to cut out the actual fabric. This is where it was going to get a little creative. First of all, I only had 2 yards of the fabric I wanted to use. It was a cottony canvas that has brown, and when it was washed, it came up with some distressing, which I loved, because so it looks a little like waxed canvas, but it has a lot of character with some white lines. This piece of fabric was 70 inches wide. I have never worked with anything so wide, but that was good because I really needed 3.5 yards for my project, and I only had 2. I'm not a big fabric Tetris person, but I did get it out. I had to patch the front facing to get a little more length in. And then I also did shorten the coat because, like I said, it's considered an English walking coat. So it comes down a little bit above the ankle. I wanted mine just a little around the knee. I knew that'd be more comfortable for a car coat. And I love that size. I wanted it to be oversized, so no matter what I had on, it would fit over and cover everything. I also knew I wanted it unlined. I didn't even want the restriction of a lining. I have jackets that are both lined and unlined. I always thought lined would be superior, and I love doing a lined jacket as far as making it, but I find I grab the unlined ones more, so I went for unlined. I did get the fabric out, but I also decided to do Hong Kong finishes since all those edges were going to be exposed. I'm not sure if that was a great decision. It created some bulk in places where there wouldn't have been a lot of bulk. I also got very creative on the inside with my Hong Kong finishes. I basically used any bias tape I had available. And that included ties. Some I had made up at other times. There's just a big mishmash. Another area that I didn't have enough fabric for was the vent extension. I cut it off and sewed it on separately. And while I have this piece out, which is the vent extension, I want to show you that I used a lot of fun tools for this project. And if you can see that little hole there, I created that hole using my buttonhole set cover. I've never done that before, but I simply used the hole for the pattern, and then I could find my dot easily. I'm always trying to find ways to make sure I mark my patterns properly, because that's kind of a weakness of mine. I often will do one notch or clip on one side, but the opposing one's missing, so it doesn't do you much good. The pattern has 5 pockets. There's 2 inseam, and there's a total of 3 patch pockets with a flap. Those were enjoyable. It's one of the first steps of the pattern. And I got to use my new edge foot. I started by, before I put it on the garment, I edged around the pockets 1/4 inch away. This is a foot that I got for Christmas. It's a Bernina, and I don't know if you know it, but Bernina thinks very highly of their feet, and they're pricey. So it's quite an investment to get a new foot. I'd already had, so I did 1/4 inch around with that, and then when I put the actual pocket on the front of the jackets, I used my number 10. This one you can move the needle with, because you can see that there's a place to move your needle. And so I put it the edge on the edge of the pocket and moved my needle over, and then I was sewing about 1/8 of an inch around. I'll insert some details here. Another fun tool, and let me just say, this project was really fun. I felt like I was a real seamstress. You know, you do so many easy knits and stuff because that's what we wear, but to get back to basics and do, you know, cottons where you're clipping and grading seams and all the things, it was kind of like I felt like I was learning to be a proper seamstress. Another tool I used was the mallet. So again, like I said, I had these Hong Kong finishes. So especially around the collar, I had to do a little tapping to massage those layers of fabric. And then the other thing I used was my hump jumper as I would go over the uneven terrain of the seam around the collar. Speaking of the collar, I don't know if I've ever done this type of collar. It had a collar stand, but the collar stand didn't go all the way around. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know it had a collar stand when I bought the pattern because I really wanted that. I call it like a Peter Pan collar that is just laying right on the front. But sure enough, it has a little bit of a stand in the back, and I just love that look. I'm really glad it did, and it was, like I said, I never put one of those in before. I was a little confused on some stuff, but you know, it came together. And as you can see, I had to use a lot of different fabrics on the collar. Again, I didn't have much fabric. Sizing. I sewed a size 14. It was supposed to be for a size 37-inch bust, 31-inch waist, which I have a bigger, but it's not fitted in the waist, and a 41-inch hips. The finished garment would have 4 inches of ease around the bust, 21 inches of ease around the waist, and 5 inches of ease around the hips. It has a 5/8 inch seam allowance, 1.5 centimeters, which again, when you're used to doing knits, just seems huge. I really was very conscientious with the seam allowance, so I feel certain I did do a 5/8 inch seam allowance. However, it came up pretty big. If I make this again, I'll make it in a 12. If I line it, I'll keep it with the 14. I'm very happy with the fit. I simply just put some shoulder pads in it to just bring up that shoulder a little bit because it was just a little bit big in the shoulders. It's raglan sleeves, so you don't have the seam on the shoulder to know exactly where the seam should be or where the fit should be, but it was a little bit big. The buttons I used, I got at Joann. They are a mock leather button. They look really good for an English walking coat because the English historically used these English woven buttons in leather. I felt very fortunate to find these buttons because my Joann is very, very, very sparse right now on buttons. They just don't have the manpower to get their shipments on the floor, and they're not getting everything they need. So I was very happy with them. I was fairly happy with my buttonholes. I tried using the automatic feature on my machine, which I thought I had mastered. I literally probably practiced 10 buttonholes, and I thought I had mastered it. And then on the third one, the buttonhole just kept on growing and growing and growing. And for some reason, it came out way too long. So I re-sewed that buttonhole. I did apply several layers of fray check and then opened the buttonholes and sewed on the buttons with a heavier thread that I happen to have. And I feel happy with that. I really recommend this pattern. It's exactly what I was looking for. And I'm very happy with it. And I look forward to being ready in spring to already have a lightweight jacket that I can just throw on to run errands or run around in the car, whatever I'm doing. Okay, so what do I have on today? Today I have on one of my first makes. It's the Hepburn turtleneck by Itch to Stitch. It was a fitted turtleneck and I didn't want it to be fitted. It was before I knew to check things like that, so I just made it in a larger size. The fabric I love the look of, but it was horrible to work with. It has absolutely no recovery and it's a rib knit, and I literally would baste it, the ribs together, and then I got that lettuce lace hem that was undesirable, so I put on a rib, which I love. This goes with absolutely everything. I love having it in my pattern, in my wardrobe. Another thing is the hem I had to kind of modify because again, it was just so loose and it was growing. And so I took the original hem off and put some reinforcement behind it in a knit fabric that doesn't have near as much stretch. I also have on a new pair of pants that I made that are called the Picasso pants by Sewing Workshop. I again look forward to wearing these pants this spring with sandals. All right, I think that's it. This is my second episode. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll keep on trying. Have a good day.